You are listening to the Global CTE podcast with your host, Sylvester Chisom.
Welcome, my friend, to another episode of the Global CTE podcast. I am your host, Sylvester Chisom. This is the place where we like to wrap a blanket of goodwill around our career tech education community, where I interview the best, the brightest, the movers, the shakers, the industry partners, the people who are really making a difference in preparing our students for success in the global marketplace. Today is no different. I have my good friend Jennifer Lindsey here. Now, let me tell you about Jennifer. Jennifer is the Chief Marketing and Digital Officer for Corbion, an industry leader in food safety, freshness, and stabilization solutions in many of the foods we all enjoy, and lactic acid and its derivatives for bioindustrial and biomedical applications. Jennifer brings 32 years of international strategy development, product development, and marketing experience in the areas of food ingredients, supplements, and products for humans and companion animals. With a scientific background in food science and biochemistry, Jennifer is able to translate science into the so what, otherwise known as commercial differentiation. On the education side, Jennifer is on the advisory board for the well-known CAPS network. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Now, I'm excited to have you on, especially coming from the industry partner side of food science and all the amazing things that are and innovations that are happening in that space. I think it's a really exciting time right now to talk about that and try to elevate the conversation for our educators. But before we go too deep in your Corbion work, like what's the origin story? How do you get here?
How did I get here? The very short answer is I fell into this industry.
Okay.
The little bit longer answer is I was always a student that enjoyed science and STEM. I was that kid that used to sit and watch the public channels and watch all the science shows. And I had parents and teachers that encouraged me to go in that direction. But before CAPS was even a thing, before a lot of emphasis in STEM when I was growing up, there was a limited amount of access to what type of careers you could go into. Mm-hmm. So, of course, probably like most kids that enjoy science, I thought, well, then I'll go into medicine. And so I majored in biochemistry as an undergrad with the intention of going into medical school. Until I woke up about, I'd say the beginning of my sophomore year in a panic, realizing, oh my gosh, I don't think I want to live, breathe, eat, sleep, want to be a doctor. I don't know if I want to go to school that long. I don't know if I want to do a residency. I don't know if I want to do an internship, fellowship. All these things weighed very heavy on my mind. And quite honestly, I panicked. And so then I went to speak to my advisor because biochemistry happened to be in the College of Agriculture where I went to school. And I went to University of Missouri-Columbia, Mizzou. And she encouraged me to talk to the Dean of Agriculture. And the Dean actually suggested I go into food science, to which in the beginning I said, oh no, I don't want to go into home ec. I don't want to learn, cook for a living. And she said, no. You don't understand. Food science is essentially a biochemistry of food systems, and the body. And she said, just take the introduction course and see what you think. And so I did that and I was hooked. And honestly, it is the best thing ever that I fell into food science. And really, that's the genesis of why I am so passionate about it today and talking to kids.
There's so much to unpack in what you just said that like I have like 9 questions from. First off, I don't know if you knew this, but so I have a degree in biology. Mm-hmm. And similar story in the sense of, oh, you make good grades, you enjoy you want to be a doctor, science, biology degree equals doctor or
Yeah.
professor. And that was such a limited exposure. When I reflect back now that I have a friend who just graduated from from WashU with her PhD in and she had a biology degree, but now she's working for a biotech startup. And so for myself, like knowing who I am, and I enjoyed entrepreneurship and science, the
Yeah.
biotech startup world was, I didn't see that. I wasn't exposed
Yeah.
to that. So I'm
Yeah.
like, if you don't have the dean that says, you know what, just take the intro class and you can find yourself in this work. Like,
You are so right. It was that dean was, to use science terms and an analogy, that dean was the catalyst.
yeah,
Had she not encouraged me, first introduced me and made me aware about this program, then encouraged me and reduced the risk to just take the intro course, which, by the way, we count toward my general education credits anyway, regardless. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for
yeah.
her.
What do you
But
let's stay there for a second. What are your
okay.
thoughts around how can we, even from the from your industry partner side, from Corbion,
Yeah.
how can we get in front of more students sooner? Like, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts around that so that they can see? So sixth grade Jennifer meets Miss Lindsay, the marketing director. Like
Yeah.
what are your thoughts around that?
Wow. I wish I could say there was one quick, easy way to do it, but I think it's a multimodal type of paths forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things that I've seen over the course of my career, I mean, even before CAPS was in existence, I
Mm-hmm.
personally, because of my personal belief and values of, I believe in paying it forward. And I love the fact that I've had the career and the opportunity that I have, that I want other kids to have that same opportunity. So early in my career, I just started volunteering at the
Mm-hmm.
schools that my children went to, and I would go talk to their science teachers. And I started as early as third grade to go in and talk to these kids. And then that just kind of led to teachers talking to teachers. And so then I would end up going to a different school for middle school and for high school. Um, that led to other colleagues that wanted to do the same thing. So we did it more in a grassroots effort, but that in and of itself is not going to shift the tide nationally for all kids. But you know what? You got to start somewhere. You
Yeah.
have to start somewhere. Never underestimate being a pebble in the water. And you being a pebble in the water could be a huge thing for one kid, and you may not see the end of what you started, but that's okay. That's what
Mhm.
forward's all about. But then along the path, learned about CAPS, became connected to CAPS, started meeting, and then the Future of Food program came into being. So I think it's individuals that share that passion or that pay it forward type mindset, that want to engage with the younger generation about the opportunities that are in front of them that they just don't have awareness of. It takes all of us just to have that initial conversation, just to take that one step forward. Could you imagine if every single person that had just the inclination to reach out to teachers or schools to talk in this way in mass, think about the impact we could have.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think CAPS is one of those platforms that we could do that with.
absolutely. I'm thinking about this from our listeners' perspective, the
Mm-hmm.
educators or administrators who are listening, to understand that industry partners on the other side want to pay it
Oh,
forward.
yes.
So
Yes.
so reach out. So ask and think about who your neighbors are, your the clubs you belong to, like the
Yes.
careers that the people have. your church or whatever, that sort of thing, the people in your family or your friend groups, to figure out how can you get these industry professionals in front of students earlier and sooner, so that they can potentially see themselves in the work.
Absolutely. And sometimes, and I'm just trying to put myself in the educator's shoes, but also the people in the industry shoes. I can speak as somebody from industry. Sometimes you don't want to bother the teachers. You know that they already have a full plate. You know that there's so much that they have to deal with nowadays.
Yeah.
So for a teacher just to say, hey, are there any parents out there that have this background, or do you know of anybody that can come in and just speak with us, or just make the kids aware? I know when I was putting together the presentations, I would do some hands-on little experiments that kids could do at a younger age, just to get their minds going and have some fun. And that, of course, you make more age appropriate. And when you get into high school, you're going to be talking about some other things that maybe is a little bit more hard hitting, that gets their attention. It's all adaptable, but man, it just starts with creating the awareness. It's just a conversation. That's it.
It's so good that you said you're not just coming in and talking, but you're thinking of some activity to highlight the work. That was something that came up in the previous podcast with Brooke Rice from NAF, talking about how to elevate those guest speaker situations. They should be like learning workshops of some sort to highlight that. But let's go to Cap. So you and I were introduced by our mutual friend, Corey Moan. He said, man, you got to talk to Jennifer. We were just together actually in Omaha, not too long ago. But your involvement with the CAPS network, talk to me about how you're connecting with CAPS and food science and Corbion. Talk to me about that.
Sure. And first of all, I mean, shout out to Corey. I appreciate him so much. And he has the energy just to drive this even further and further, which I think is fantastic. So about, oh goodness, I'm going to say it's going on maybe close to 10 years ago. I met with Joe Whalen of the CAPS program. And at that time, he was teaching in the biological sciences. And of course, as you know, CAPS is always interested in partnering with community, with industry, and focusing in, if you will, at that Venn diagram of where the circles overlap, of where industry has needs, and therefore future career and job developments for future talent. And one of the things about the food industry at large, and this is nationally and globally, is we have high demand for scientific talent, and we don't have enough supply. So it's the economic supply and demand curve in action. And so typically how we compensate for that is we will, if you will, borrow from other scientific disciplines of straight biology, straight chemistry, and bring them into our industry. And then we will train them into the food science type of technology and science that we work within. And that's great because they're capable. But imagine if we could hit the ground running, because across the United States in the land-grant university network through College of Agricultures, there are already established programs at the university level in food science, baking science, meat science. And so we could graduate out from the university already specifically trained individuals in the scientific disciplines specific to food science itself, and we could hit the ground running. That's where CAPS came into play, because they recognized within the Kansas City area, we have a few food-based companies, food ingredients, food technology, as well as manufacturers for food products. We have a high need in the industry. We have the community that was willing to be involved, and then it happens, we had the CAPS program right in our backyard. So it's one of those, when the stars align, go for it, grab it.
I think that's the perfect example of how education and industry should work together in that collaborative ecosystem of these are the jobs, the careers of now and next. Education, please, like prepare prepare your students
Right.
with this information and this knowledge base, and we can keep them in our community, in our local community, to build upon that, you know.
Correct. Correct.
um,
And the
what
interesting thing I have to say with the CAPS program too is the universities that have these programs, they're also experiencing a difficulty in getting enough students into the programs because, again, lack of awareness.
Mhm.
So it really is a win-win because it's going to work for the industry, but it's also going to work for the universities as well
Mhm.
that are trying to attract students. So I just think if the CAPS network is already established, we don't
Mhm.
need to go reinvent the wheel. Let's
Right.
leverage the technology that and the platforms that have already been developed.
Tell me more about that CAPS network partnership with Corbion. Like, are students coming
Mhm.
on campus and getting a chance to meet employees, or like what are some of the interactions? How do they look?
Well, it's a combination of all the above. So when I started working with Joe,
Mhm.
I was actually helping to design the curriculum, if you will, and we modeled it how we actually interact in our day-to-day jobs in the food industry. Because in the food industry, unlike I would say typical educational environments, you go from hour to hour to your subject matter, whatever that is. That hour could be English, social studies, science. But in the industries, in most industries, you have people that interact all together. So you have the business people interacting with marketing people, interacting with the scientists, interacting with accountants, interacting with finance, interacting with sales. And that's the reality. So we were designing a curriculum around the science, but then we brought in the other
Mhm.
cap strands too for the kids to interact with kids from the other cap strands because you have cross-functional teams in the real world and you have
Mhm.
to be aware of other disciplines and how to leverage those disciplines. So when we were designing the curriculum, it was not only learning about the industry itself, about the dynamics and the pulls, if you will, from the market, about the science itself, but Joe has them write a business plan. They have to
Mhm.
actually develop their own food, like food application, finished food product. They are formulating, they are testing, they are evaluating. They are then putting together the business plan, a break even analysis, and then they have to do a Shark Tank pitch about their
Mhm.
product in front of industry professionals. I'm telling you, I've never done anything like that in high school, and I did not do anything like that at the university level either. So it's an amazing experience, and it's as inspiring for us in the industry as well. So how we engage with them, as an example with Corbion, I will go into the class probably
Mhm.
2 or 3 times per semester, and that's a grand total of anywhere from 3 to 5 hours in total. So from my work environment, I get to engage with kids, but I'm saying that for professionals that may be listening in from industry, this isn't something that you can't manage on top of your
Right.
day job because it's just a few hours a semester. Then the kids will also come into Corbion at least once a semester and spend 2 to 3 hours, and they will take lab tours and they will engage with our scientists. And
Right.
I am telling you, scientists are some of the best individuals in industry to engage with kids when they come through labs. They love to do the show and tell, and that sucks the kids in with their interest and their energy. We have some amazing, amazing scientists at Corbion that like to interact with the kids. And then I go back along with a colleague or two, and we will be
Mhm.
the Shark Tank judges, where we are fortunate enough to be pitched to with the ideas, and we get to taste the products that they developed, and we get to see what is in their business plan. And then we give them some thoughtful questions around what they built and what they need to consider if it was something they were going to go forward with.
Okay, I'm in love with this concept of this class, especially the full circle component of connecting the science with the food product, with the
Mm-hmm.
business component to it, which, like you said, is real world and interdisciplinary. I think the best learning happens in those interdisciplinary intersections. What Give me some of your favorites. What were some of the best pitches or food products that you have seen?
Okay, well, I'm going to focus in on two, but there are so many good ones. I will tell you, every semester, I am blown away with
Mm-hmm.
what these kids come up with. Truly, truly, some innovative things. There are two I'm going to focus on because these two rose to the top, even so much as my colleague and I that were part of the Shark Tank said,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you should go see if you've got something here, like talk to an IP lawyer or something, because
Oh,
you have
wow.
something that we've never seen in the industry. One kid with his project actually launched a company during COVID because he graduated right before. He is still in business, and this is going on 4 years. It's called Bacon Zest, and it's a seasoning flavoring that you can shake onto bacon, and it is
Uh-huh.
amazing. And why this is one of my favorites is because what he started with, he did not end up with, which is
Okay.
often what happens in science and product development. You have an idea, but as you start to formulate, you run into brick walls. Well, guess what? That's called experimental design. Experimental design and product development is nothing more than controlled failures. That's how you learn. You learn through your mistakes more than you do your successes. So he started with one idea, and
Okay.
through the brick walls, he ended up with another idea that was so successful that he launched a product. And as a kid out of high school, he's still in business 4 years later. And I see him online through social media. He'll go to
Okay.
Williams Sonoma. He's in some of the retail stores around here. They have an online
Okay.
presence. It's quite amazing.
He's
Um,
he's in Williams Sonoma.
he
Are
has
you
been in Williams
serious?
Sonoma locally here, showcasing his product as well as some of the
That's
retail stores. Um,
that's so
and
good.
it's really good product too. I mean, it is really good bacon when you add it to your bacon.
I
Um,
just Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I see a sweet
bacon,
a
yeah,
sweet barbecue, a classic
yes,
barbecue for your bacon. Oh my goodness, this is awesome. And
oh yeah.
this came from that CAPS
This
Future
came
Foods
from the
class.
Future Foods Capstone Project, which is
Man,
now
outstanding.
4 years in the running a business. Then there's another student that I love his story. His name is Jackson. And when
Uh-huh.
he first came into the Future Foods program, he said, well, I'm not a STEM kid. I don't really like
Mm-hmm.
science, but I do like to cook. And so that's why he went into the class.
Okay.
Little did he know this was hard science. But I'm going to skip to the end first, and then I'll come back to his product. This kid is now at the University of Arkansas in his second year, or maybe third year, is a declared food science major and is now a science kid after he said he wasn't really a science kid. But he fell in love with science because it was applied science. So you learn it, but then you get to go touch it, feel it, taste it, smell
Mm.
it, develop product development, and you see that science come to life. And it just sticks in the brain synapses that much more. So
Yeah.
he created, like the whip toppings, like the Ready Whip that you squirt out of the can. That my
Uh-huh.
daughter, I still catch at Thanksgiving, shooting it directly into her mouth. So anyway, so he created a savory whip topping,
Okay.
and he started with the Buffalo Wild Wing type of flavor profile.
Okay.
And I know that might sound odd, but when we tried it, it was incredibly good.
Hmm.
And it was something that, again, my colleague and I looked at this and we were like, why didn't we come up with this? We're in the industry. There is nothing like it on the market today.
To
And
put
we
on
immediately,
on
to
like
put
a
on like
baked
hot
potato or
dogs or
something.
baked potatoes. Exactly. You did exactly what we did. We immediately started to think all the
Like, where
uses.
would you?
And then we immediately started to think of all the line extensions that you could have of condiments that are more aerated, what topping or dips or
Yeah.
snacks. The only reason he could not go forward with it is because, well, Jackson didn't have the money to invest in a pilot plant and the equipment you need to aerate and put into the canisters. But he had a few brick walls too, but
Okay.
those brick walls were something that we could then connect him in. Like I connected
Mm.
him in with a scientist at Corbion, and
Okay.
that led to discussions on emulsification chemistry. And
Mm.
that is where his mind started clicking on applying to science. And I just have to say, I love that story because it is yet another student that came into the class thinking one way, left majoring in food science. And Joe has
Yeah.
done a tremendous job since the class has started. Every single semester, he has one or two students that will go into food science. So,
I
in
love it.
terms of ratios of students in the program that go into the
Mhm.
declared area, he's one of the tops. So
And
it's a proven platform.
I think I need to talk to Joe. I need to have him on too. But I'm it's just when you personalize the learning and you make it exciting for the kids, then it's like, okay, I could do this.
Yeah.
It's not some boring just like working in a lab thing. Like, no, this is doing something fun, exciting, that's
Yeah.
leading to something. So working in the lab is exciting, and
Yes.
that, yeah, that's
And I
awesome.
think too, especially in the food industry, what I think kids relate to, I mean, everybody eats. And so one of the things I loved about being in the food industry
Hmm.
is I get to interact with what I do every single day, several times a day. I'm one of
Hmm.
those people, I geek out going to the
Hmm.
grocery store. I don't do online shopping. I know that's a
You see,
thing. Believe me, I know it's a convenience, but I love going and seeing what's
and
new out
see,
there. And then, I will always buy the brand new product to try it out. But it's very relatable. And
mm,
I think one of the things we also do when we talk to the kids, I mean, in today's day and age, unfortunately, science, because it's not well understood, because it has its own language, it's what we call nomenclature, because it's not understood, it can be feared. It does not
mhm,
need to be feared. And you can learn it. And that language is just like you learning Spanish or German.
mm,
It takes some effort and time, but it completely translates. And our food is, yeah, just like we are. We are chemistry. We are embodied chemistry walking around right now. We are embodied biology walking around right now. Um, Everything on this earth is.
yeah. Talk to me about the career opportunities in the space that are available, that their jobs, careers waiting on students to fill them.
So I get really excited about this. One of the things I will say, as somebody who is now on the business side, but started out in science, and we've given, my husband and I have given our three children this advice as well, and they're all like, one, I have to say, one of them is a food scientist and is already in
Okay.
the business side. That's my middle one, so I was really excited about that.
So
Um,
you've done your job. You've done your job.
yeah, I at least got 33%. There. You know? But my oldest is in grad
Mhm.
school in the
Okay.
sciences, and my youngest is a junior in undergrad in the sciences. And one of the things we've told them is that, again, supply and demand. There's not enough kids that were graduating out of the university with science degrees. Flat out across all industries, not enough science kids coming out. If you get an undergrad, at least in science, you can, I mean, I'm living proof of this, and most of the people I work with in this industry are living proof of this. You can move out of the lab into the business side. You can have multiple career paths, whether you stay in the lab, whether you go to business, whether you go to marketing. there are so many options out there in the industry and in a lot of industries, because when you understand the science and you are in a company that is their business, is science at some level, and then you go to the business side, you actually can walk both sides of the fence. You're that translator. You can listen and understand both languages, the business side as well as the science that you are marketing or selling into an industry. So the career potential is amazing. There is, I believe, nationally for food science programs, 100% placement of all graduates. I can speak from my own personal experience as a parent. My son had 3 job offers after he graduated, and he was a December graduate. So he was 4.5 years that he graduated undergrad. And he also had an interest in the science, but also like the business side. And so his first job is actually more on the business side, but he's got a science background. So he can bring both into the role that he has. And we need that. We desperately need that in our industries.
I want to get your opinion on something here, because you're super deep in on this. So there's a program in St. Louis that I helped co-found. So it's called the Show Me the World Project. And so we take kids, inner city kids from St. Louis to Costa Rica. They learn about science, bioscience, biodiversity, culture, and entrepreneurship. So you'll appreciate this. So some years back, maybe 6 years back, we're in Costa Rica. We visit a coffee farm. So they're seeing the agriculture, the science connection. Some of the best soil to grow coffee is on the side of a volcano because of the volcanic soil. And fast forward, we started a coffee business out of this nonprofit that's connected to the international travel. So the kids are learning coffee roasting, branding, marketing, packaging, all of the science part, but then also, like you said, the business part to it, where we have them every week they're at the farmers market, selling the coffee, learning those durable skills and things. But I'm just curious, and it's in grocery stores now too, and the kids get a chance to go and do in-store promotions for it. But I'm curious, how would you add more of the food science part to it? Or I'm just curious your thoughts on what I just said, like from the food science.
First of all, my thoughts on what you just said is I am so excited, and that is such a cool story. Second, I'm actually from St. Louis. I grew up there. So later on, I want to know the brands. And when I go back home and visit my friends and my sister, I want to buy some.
Yeah.
So that is so cool. That is so cool and such a gift, what you're doing for those kids.
So from perspective,
the science side?
St. Louis, St. Louis, so you had a full picture. St. Louis public schools like Vashon High School, Gateway, those Central VPA, those schools from students from those areas. So
that's so cool. That is so cool.
But go ahead. What would you say to, because it's so high intensity around this food business and the cultural connection to it. So like they see it brand side here, but then when they go to those countries we're importing from, they actually visit and see it from the seed up. So like a full farm to cup knowledge, learning experience. But what would you do to take that, I'm curious, to another level to expose them to food science?
So off the top of my head, okay. So growing coffee, similar to growing grapes for wine, similar to growing orchids for vanilla, because vanilla bean pods come from an orchid. And there's different areas around the world in which you can harvest vanilla bean pods. The science that comes to mind is the soil science, because the soil, the humidity, the temperature, the elevation is going to impact the acidity that you get from those beans and the cupping of the coffee. as well as the other flavor characteristics of those beans. So the science already starts underground with all the wonderful microbes and just the environment around it. So that's one element of science. Then you go into the next element of science, which is in the roasting. So again, time, temperature related, in terms of the characteristics around that nuttiness, the brown notes, sweetness, all that around the roasting. So that goes into it. Then there is something called sensory science, which actually is where I started in my career specializing in. And sensory science is a specialty within food science where you learn to quantify differences of food using the human five senses as your instrument. So around taste, smell, texture. And that is, it is so amazing what we as humans can do, that even though we've got this wonderful technology that enables us, we still have yet to replicate the human's ability from a sensory perspective of taste, smell, olfaction, and such. That is a specialty within food science that people can go in that direction and specialize in that with education and come out as a sensory scientist. And that's another person I could connect you with in terms of to have on your podcast to talk about what sensory science is, how it's used. It's really cool. Really cool.
Thank you for sharing that. And just seeing at the highest level, like what you're saying, the fullness of the connection of science to business, to our grocery stores, to the food we consume, to the career options that are available. I think we just need to find more ways to make it exciting, like this future of foods class. Everyone needs this.
Yes, but you know what? Here's the thing. It already exists. So how do we potentially adapt and replicate across the CAPS network and networks like CAPS? That's the wonderful thing. You can modify it to fit the needs of your community, the industry around you, and the schools. But we've at least got the platform that we can start with.
I want to, with that said, and stand on that CAPS component, you and the educator, you guys did a big conference, a big national conference. Was it with the USDA or talk to me more about what was it?
So Joe Whalen and I were invited to speak at NAMI, which is the National Association for the Meat Industry. And they just had a national conference. It's part of their protein pack, which is their efforts around sustainability end to end in the protein industry portion of the food industry, which is animal-based protein as well as vegetable-based or plant-based protein. So sustainability, when you think about it beyond just the environmental aspect and the animal aspect, it's also, around the social aspect of sustainability. So we were sharing with them about the CAPS network model, about how, what I just explained to you, the supply and demand curve, every single industry trade event that I go to, whether it's in baking, whether it's in meat, whether it's in dairy or confectionery or beverage, all these industry trade organizations within the food industry are saying, we have an issue with our talent pipeline. We don't have enough talent coming in for the future that we need in terms of the roles to be filled. So Joe and I wanted to create awareness about CAPS. So just like we have to create awareness for the kids about food science, as industry professionals involved in some form or fashion, whether it's with CAPS or Spark or other programs similar to that across the nation, we need to also help them create awareness in the communities, in the industries that we are a part of, because there is an opportunity to collaborate so that, again, it's a win-win, so that these education programs are successful in creating awareness for the kids and also getting them prepared for future opportunities for their careers, as well as the industry then has the talent pipeline they need. And like I said, the universities that have these programs also have feeders of talent coming up through their programs. But we all got to be aware that each other exists. So this was our first time that we have spoken at a national conference. And based on the discussions afterwards, it seemed that people were interested in CAPS and this type of a program. And we're really hoping that it's the beginning of more opportunities to engage with industry and create awareness across the board.
Outstanding. So important. And you're like the perfect person. You're sitting right at the intersection here of like, let me go and talk to my industry people and let me go and talk to the educators and bring everyone together.
That's
for
my
the
hope.
good, for the good of the students and the
Yes.
good of the food science industry. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining me today on the podcast. If someone is wanting to learn more about the work you're doing or bring you in for a keynote or something about food science, how do we get in touch with you?
Oh, I would love that, and I would welcome that. So you can email me at jennifer.lindsey, and Lindsey's SEY at the end, at Corbion, and Corbion is CORBION.com. Or if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to engage there. And let's, like I said, it starts with a conversation. Let's have a conversation.
Absolutely. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode today, please don't be selfish. Share it with a friend or a colleague. Share the knowledge. Great conversation around food science, the possibilities, and the careers that are here and available for our students who are interested in the subject. Now, today, I also want to say thank you to our good friend, Corbion from the CAPS Network. He's always connecting us with great people. So this has been another great one. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for my listeners. And remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Global CTE podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about future episodes.